Good afternoon, everyone. I guess maybe not such a good afternoon for some people after the Steelers get absolutely destroyed by the Bills in Buffalo on Sunday afternoon. My name is Adam Bittner. I'm a digital sports producer for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm here with Paul Zeise, our sports columnist, to break down every angle of the game, or at least the first half when it maybe looked like it was a game. I don't know if there's much we can take from that second half. Paul, what's your 30,000 foot level before I do all of the intros and everything?
Well, I think it's pretty clear, Adam. Any attempt to spin any positives out of this game is just basically not being honest at all about anything. The offense was not good. The defense was not good. The special teams were not good. The coaching was not good. This was a failure on all levels. And look, I get it. They missed a couple of field goals. There was a couple of drops and all this other stuff. At the end of the day, whatever you want to say about Kenny Pickett, they scored 3 points. 3 points. And the reality is, if Mitch Trubisky played the exact same game that Kenny Pickett did, which, by the way, throwing for 300 yards, when you throw it, 52 or 53 or whatever it was, however many times he threw it, throwing it for 300 yards when the entire second half you're down by more than 30 or whatever it was, and you're facing against a defense that just basically wants to get out without an injury and is playing pretty soft until you get into the red zone. They're giving you yards. To me, I don't know that there's anything good that you can take from. I'll give you one thing, Adam. George Pickens is really a good player. That's the one thing I'll tell you. That's probably the positive that you can take out of this game, because he made some pretty good plays. He made some big plays. But we've been talking about these things for what is this now, week 5 or week 4? I can't even keep track. We've been talking about these things for how long, Adam? Receivers dropping passes. Quarterbacks not making big-time throws at big-time times. Offensive linemen who can't run block. A first-round draft pick running back who never makes anybody miss and never makes anything exciting happen when he gets the ball. A defense who can't stop the run. I mean, the Bills don't have a good running game, and every time they ran the ball, it seemed like they got 8 yards. A defense, obviously the secondary was beat up, but you know what, Adam? Their secondary and everything else, they had a bunch of injuries on their defense, and you know what? They figured out how to get stops. So to me, I mean, this was a disaster from the start until the finish.
I agree, and we will get into all of those areas you just mentioned in some more detail. But before we do, if you're joining us for the first time, please like this video, help us out with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you have not already to the Post-Gazette's new YouTube channel. And you can check out the subscription deal we still have going on in the description. $6 for 6 months of digital access to the Post-Gazette. All the coverage for the rest of football season is only going to cost you $6, and it'll help us do the journalism we love to do every day. So please consider that. If you'd like to participate in the chat, if you're on postgazette.com, please click over to YouTube and then hop in the chat. Leave a question or a comment, and we will try to get to as many questions as we can before the end of this conversation. And with that, Paul, I'm going to start with Kenny Pickett and kind of pick up where you left off in that, I didn't really see an offense that was materially different. I think the thing that broke me, because I've tried to be pretty neutral about these things and just kind of watch and wait for some things to happen before I start to form any hard opinions. But there was that period in the middle of the second quarter where they handed off to Najee Harris, I think, 3 or 4 times and threw it to him twice. They just kept forcing the ball to Najee Harris when they were still in the football game. And I said on Twitter, it felt like the Bills were trying to get a first down on every play, like they were down by 21 points. The Steelers looked like they were running clock offense while they were losing by multiple touchdowns. I don't know, when those are the play calls, what you're going to get from Mitch Trubisky, from Kenny Pickett, from anyone. That's what finally broke me in terms of this offense and how it's being run right now.
Well, I mean, again, they seem to specialize in throwing it short of the sticks, don't they? They seem to do a lot of that. Listen, it's a shame, but it seems like almost like like handing the ball to Najee Harris is a wasted play. I hate to say that because I think he's got some ability. I think he's a decent player, but either they're not blocking it right or he ain't running it right. He doesn't make anybody miss. He doesn't get he doesn't get extra yards like he used to. He doesn't do anything to outrun anybody. He is basically just hand it to him, and whatever is there, he's going to get and nothing more. The offense, I think by design, we've said this before, I think Matt Canada is in over his head. I don't think he's a good offensive coordinator. I don't think changing quarterbacks is going to change that. You got a guy like Kenny Pickett, and all of a sudden you get a guy like Kenny Pickett, and all of a sudden everybody thinks everything's going to change, but it's not. You still have the same guy calling plays. You still have some of the same problems blocking. You still have a running back who's not dynamic. You still have receivers that drop the passes too much. So to me, it's very, very simple. Like you just said, we can sit here all day and break apart, each play and here and that. But I feel like there are times in the game when the Steelers offense should be aggressive and they're passive. And there's times when they should be passive and they're aggressive. It's like he has no feel for the game. He has no idea what's going on in the game and calling offense for the game. And I think the other thing about it is, in the second half, you're basically taking the yards that Buffalo's given you. They just want to get out of the game without injuries. And so I don't even know if I count any of that in the second half. But at the end of the day, Matt Canada has to figure out what the offense's identity is, what it's going to be, and then work on play calling from there. I just don't think he's very good at what he does. I don't know that that's going to change. I think you'll get some more big plays out of Kenny Pickett than maybe you did out of Mitch Trubisky, just because he's going to be more willing to let it fly. But at the end of the day, if the guy calling the plays is clueless, you can only overcome that so much.
Yeah, and I think you can only overcome, receiver drops so much too. But just one more point on Kenny Pickett. He did seem to, I think we talked last week, that he seemed more decisive than Mitch Trubisky. And I saw some of that today. I think he stood in the pocket well at times. Was there any part of his game that you felt merited discussion? I just feel like he's, as much as we want to talk about him, it being his first start, the issues there's just so many other issues above him that it's almost not worth evaluating his play.
Well, and that's what it's funny because I do that chat during the game, and I had people making, basically declarative, how this is, they're making declarations after every play, one way or the other. It's like people think it's like Kenny Pickett, you either love him or you hate him. But but really, if you watch what he did today, okay, you'll watch how he played today. There's not a whole lot to conclude from it. There just isn't. The rest of the team around him was bad. There was times when he looked okay. There was times he made bad throws. The one interception was a really bad throw. He missed some open throws. He made some really good throws. But it was basically, a game where the quarterback discussion should take a back burner, because I don't know that the quarterback was significant one way or the other. There's not anything, and anybody that comes away from this saying, oh, well, look at how much better the offense is with Kenny Pickett, they're just Kenny Pickett fans. And anybody that comes away with them and says, well, they wasted the pick, he's terrible, he's never going to be good, you're just people that hate Kenny Pickett. And it's like, try and watch the games, watch what happens, and then make a determination about what happened. And if you ask me my opinion, does Kenny Pickett look like a future NFL starting quarterback that's going to be really good? My answer is, I don't know, maybe. I mean, who knows? Who knows what he's going to be? And who knows what to make out of today's game? They only scored 3 points. And that, and okay, you want to tell me that, they should have had 9. Okay, good. Give them the other 2 field goals they missed. They still would have, if we're going to play that game, the final score should have been 55-9. Because the Bills had a fumble on the goal line, an interception in the end zone, and they had a field goal blocked on their own. So, you cannot, the discussion should not be about Kenny Pickett after today's game. I know it will be. I know that's what people want to make it. But Adam, there are so many other issues on this team. And there are also real questions that start to be asked about the coaching staff. Okay. And also who it is that picked the number of these players. Now, I know there were some injuries. Okay, I get it. But the Bills had a bunch of injuries too on both sides of the ball. And who was the kid that scored that caught his first and second, I think, and third touchdown pass today or something for them? I mean, they basically had a number of guys. They basically have a number of guys over there that stepped into roles and played really well. So again, we can break down the quarterback for the next 20 minutes or however long we're going. That's fine. But there's far more issues on this team, and there's far more to be gained by talking about those issues than trying to decipher whether or not Kenny Pickett's going to be a good player or not. I mean, he was, as far as I'm concerned, he was fine today. He wasn't great. He wasn't terrible. He was kind of just fine.
I think his passer rating ended up around 80, which is, what I think kind of reflects, statistically what you're saying. So I agree. Let's get into it with some of these other guys, especially on offense. Not that I want to let the defense off the hook here. I just think they're so, it's when you score 3 points in an NFL game, it's glaring. So I guess I want to start with Najee Harris, and you mentioned him a couple times off the top. He just doesn't seem to be seeing anything right now. There's no holes for him. To what degree do you think it's the blocking in front of him? To what degree do you think, he's just not elusive in the ways that the Steelers would hope, we're hoping he would be?
Well, I mean, I think that last thing is exactly what you're talking about. Let's go with Saquon Barkley and watch him play. And if there's an opening or a crease, there's a chance he could take it 30 yards. That's how he is. That's a game-changing back. That's the kind of guy that is an impact player. And every time he touches it, even if it's 5 straight 1-yard runs, if you keep giving it to him or you throw it to him in the flat, eventually, if he gets enough touches, he's going to make big plays because he's got that explosion. He's got that explosive factor. He's got that ability to run away from guys. He's got that ability. He's got his vision where he can see and get to the creases that he needs to get to. Najee doesn't have any of that. Najee Harris is a guy who is, honestly, and I hate to say it this way, a short yardage back. I mean, if that's what you really want from your feature running back, somebody that probably can get you 2 or 3 yards here and there on short yardage, I guess that, but that's what he is. He's not a game-changing, high-impact guy that is going to make big plays. He might help you move the sticks. He might even get some 100-yard games, Adam, but there'll be 100-yard games where he just sort of grinds away and makes sure that, he gets enough carries that he gets over 100 yards. Most of his games like that are going to be unimpressive. And I'll say this, and I know he was going against the backup defense, but look at how much harder Jaylen Warren ran when he got the ball in the fourth quarter or whatever, when they finally put him in and, they threw a little screen to him. He had a couple of runs. They had, he's a guy who puts his head down and gets going north-south. I'm going to tell you this. I'm not saying that they should make a change, but I guarantee you, if I was the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers this week, Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren would be splitting first-team reps at practice as a way to tell Najee Harris, you need to get moving, or this undrafted kid's going to take your job.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Jaylen Warren specifically, Paul, because, like you said, I don't know how much we can put into this, how much stock we can put into the stats he compiled, which were definitely better than what Najee Harris had done against the first team. But what do you think the significance is that we didn't really see Najee Harris after halftime? Do you read anything into that? Do you think that might be the beginning of some kind of message being sent here?
Well, I mean, I would say that. I would say that if he didn't, again, I haven't heard Mike Tomlin yet. I haven't heard what he had to say, but if there isn't some sort of Najee's been that foot injury or that Liz Frank thing or whatever, if there isn't something like that going on, it could be. And the thing about Mike Tomlin is he likes to talk about accountability. But you know what? When your big move of the week is the bench Gunnar Olszewski, essentially, are you really sending messages? I mean, that's what you need to ask yourself. Are you really sending messages? Are you really getting to the heart of the matter? That's what I would ask. And I always look at that. Tomlin is usually pretty good for those kind of moves. He's going to show this guy by benching him and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of other guys who didn't get their job done or haven't gotten their job done just like Gunnar Olszewski, that maybe they need to sit. And I'll tell you, I know we're going to get into this, but one of those two top receivers should start to feel a lot of heat in terms of them not getting back into the games, or at least them having to work their way back into the games. Because Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson, for as athletic as they are and all the other stuff about them, they are not getting the job done.
Their names are on my script, Paul. We're going to get into that because I have some feelings about them. The one last question I had for you about Najee was, do you feel like they've been feeding kind of forcing the ball to him at times? I mentioned earlier in the stream those 2 drives. I think they went 3 and out both times where they forced the ball to him 5 out of 6 times. Do you think there is some degree of maybe belief in the Steelers that they're believing him in a way that we don't see the reason for outwardly, and that they're trying to justify the first round pick of a running back? Because I was at the front of the line of people. I think you and I might have disagreed on this. I was at the front of the line saying that's really not where you should be spending the draft capital of a first round pick. And I think the more we see Najee Harris kind of look like a guy, just a guy, the more I question why that was not invested in an offensive lineman that could change the complexion of that whole unit, something like that. Because it does feel to me at times like they're trying to say, this guy's our playmaker. Just wait, we're going to show you any snap now.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's quite that, but I think what it is that they have a belief in that their offense is powered by the run game. That's Matt Canada. I heard some people in the last couple of weeks talking about how Matt Canada is a quarterback whisperer. Really? Since when? If you look at Matt Canada's offense, they are the one thing they've been deficient at is the passing game. He's not a quarterback guru. He's a run game guy. He always has been a run game guy. So it only would be logical to understand when you've got a run game guy calling the plays why your running back is getting so much work. I mean, that's, all of that offense a lot of that offense is predicated on running the football. And a lot of that offense is predicated on, using the run to set up deception. You've got the jet sweep stuff, the counter stuff. You've got the play action, the rollouts, all that stuff. Guess what? None of it works if you can't run the ball. None of it. You're not fooling anybody. And so, they're trying to get that established. They're trying to get Najee Harris going. I get it, but you know what? It's not working. So if you're going to continue to run offense the same way, then maybe you need to go to Jaylen Warren and see what happens when he's in the game, and see if his, can give you the same kind of spark, quote unquote, that you said you needed from Kenny Pickett. Because that's the reality of it is you have a situation here where you've got a running back that is not getting it done in an offense that's predicated on the running back getting it done. That's the whole problem I have. I don't think they're trying to show people, we made the right choice here. I think they made the choice because they wanted him to be the focal point of their offense. And guess what? He's not good enough. Period. He's just not good enough. Listen, I hate to compare, but the last time we talked, I think was the Browns game, wasn't it? Or actually it was last week. It was the Jets game. But the Browns game, I said watching Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt live, both of those guys are so much better than Najee Harris. It's not even funny. And it's not even about the offensive line, because Kareem Hunt made a lot of plays in that game and a lot of plays obviously today after he got through the line or after he had initial contact. They've got explosion. Najee Harris just is not an explosive player.
I want to get into the receivers. We teased it. Paul, I'm sick of hearing about how talented these receivers are, how talented, I think you can include Najee Harris in that, but I think especially Chase Claypool, especially Deontay Johnson, they get talked about in some quarters like they're already star players and that they're just this close from putting it all together. I have seen none of that from Chase Claypool. And Deontay Johnson, I think, had a really elite season last year. I think he justified the contract he was given in the offseason. But we have to be honest about where he is now. And he's made some spectacular catches, but he's not, he's made a lot of drops. He's made at least as many drops in key situations as he has, spectacular catches. And he's not showing that every down, being open regularity that we saw with Ben Roethlisberger. He just hasn't had it with either quarterback. Are these guys overrated? Because I feel like overwhelmingly at this point they are.
I've been saying it all year long. I've been saying it for all these people that think you got elite receivers on this team. I've heard people talk about how this receiving core is the best in the NFL. Adam, are you out of your mind? Are you kidding me? The best in the NFL? There's no way. Here's the thing. Chase Claypool, I thought, and that was it the last series or the series before the last series, I thought he gave up on a play, just flat out gave up on a play. And Tony Romo even called him out on TV.
I was going to bring that. I think we're talking about the same play that
Yeah,
I wanted to bring
exactly.
that one
Tony
up too.
Romo even called him out on it. Deontay Johnson. There was at least two times he had a chance to make a big play, either on third or fourth down, and he dropped it. And he almost led to another interception with one of those balls that went off of his hands too. These guys, you have to make plays. And again, I hate to compare to other people because again, there are stars and non-stars. But we're being told that Deontay Johnson is a number one receiver. Well, guess what? Did you watch the guy number 14 on the other team, Stephon Diggs? How many balls did he get his hands on and not make catches? I mean, he had some really difficult catches in traffic. I can think of one play where they ran like a little play action and then threw it like a slant to him. And you know what? It was a pass that probably was a high fastball that was a little bit out of his range. And if he would have not caught it, you could have said, well, that was a tough one. He went up and got it with his hands. These guys, you want to be big time, you've got to make big time plays. You want to be, you want to be considered elite, you've got to make elite plays. Chase Claypool, to me, is a guy that will be, whenever he's done, okay, will be one of. I hate to say this from a different world, but here we go, Adam, because I know you're a baseball guy. He will be the Gregory Polanco of the Steelers, a guy that when he's done, everybody's frustrated because we've spent 4 or 5 years or however long he's going to be here saying this next game, he's going to be a star. He's too big. He's too athletic. He's too fast. He's too this. He's too that. And then we'll look up 4 or 5 years, 4 or 5 games after 4 or 5 seasons, and we'll be like, this dude never got any better. This dude is the same dude as he was when he came into the league. I mean, again, and you understand the Gregory Polanco comparison. I mean, Pirate fans for years and years and years kept saying this guy is going to be a superstar. He's too big, athletic. He's got too many skills. This and that. He's going to put it all together, and he just never did. And now when we talk about him, we look back at his when he was here, we say he's one of the most frustrating athletes in the history of Pittsburgh sports. But Chase Claypool's on his way to being that guy.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. However, that said, Paul, I think one of the things that's magnified the drops, and I finally started to put this together a little bit again during that second quarter when I just couldn't, there was nothing going on, is that I feel like these drops are magnified by the fact that they're like the only time the Steelers will look downfield in a given series. And it's, whatever leads up to that drop, it's like, we're going to do this quick out, this quick screen pass, or we're going to run straight ahead with Najee Harris. And then like all of a sudden, now you finally look downfield and then they don't make the play. And I'm not making excuses for them, but how much of, the issue here is the design as well, and the play calling that leads up to these drops where they become such pivotal plays where if you make them, yeah, maybe you can sustain these drives, but you're putting so much pressure on those one plays where you actually look down the field that when you don't make them, you're toast and it's 3 and out and you're off the field.
Well, there is some of that, Adam, but I think the other part of it is there are, third downs and fourth downs where you've got to make plays. I mean, that's usually the difference between winning and losing football games. And to me, when you look at it from that standpoint, these guys who are supposed to be elite receivers, I'm sorry, on 3rd and 4, you got to make a play. On 4th and 6, you've got to make a play. And it's not just those pivotal downs. There's downs earlier, there's first and second downs where, they don't make plays. And so to me, there's a lot of blame to go around. Trust me. I'm not putting it all on the receivers. But if you ask me, if for the Steelers offense to get better, because Kenny Pickett, for the most part, he had time to throw today. There were some plays like Von Miller got to him, and there was a couple of plays where the pocket collapsed. But for the most part, they've given him opportunities to make
That's going to
throws.
happen with any line, Paul, right? I mean, like
Right.
they can't keep him completely clean on every play.
And so the point is, he's had the time to throw it. Now it's up to the receivers to get themselves open and make plays on the ball when the ball comes. And that's the next part of it. And I would say that's the sort of the next step for the Steelers offense. That, and also being able to hand the ball to Najee Harris and get yards, or Jaylen Warren and get yards. And I'm not talking about 1 or 2. I'm talking about getting 4 or 5 yards, and really putting the pressure on the other team to worry about your run game. Because right now, if you play the Steelers, there's not a whole lot about the run game that scares you. And so you can commit more people, especially now that they've got a rookie quarterback, you can commit more people to the pass. And know that, you know what, even if we spring a leak in the run game, it might only be a 5 or 6 yard run. Whereas if you spring a leak against one of these teams that has a home run hitting back, well, now all of a sudden it's a 60-yard run. So my point is, I think that's the key with the Steelers is the receivers have to make plays, but they also need to be able to grind out 4 or 5 yards, when they want to run the ball. And in both of those situations, they're not doing it.
Paul, I feel like I ask you this question every week, but it's a windy day. You got a rookie quarterback. Where was some of that trademark misdirection from Matt Canada on, maybe just 1 or 2 times to maybe get us? We keep using this word spark, and I'm kind of sick of saying it already. It's only been a week of Kenny Pickett being in there, but just a couple of times, especially, if things aren't working up the middle and they're not working with Najee Harris, and you're trying to get Chase Claypool involved in the game in a way that doesn't involve him having to make a catch. Where was some of that stuff, to maybe get a spark, or just did it not matter because the stuff that needed to work was not working, and that's pretty much
there
where
was
the day was
that.
going
I
to go.
think the other thing is we've started to see a little less of that stuff every week, right? Because, those jet sweeps, they don't work. I mean, they work here and there, but for the most part, NFL linebackers are too fast. NFL safeties and linebackers and everything are too fast. And it's hard to get those things to work. Some of that stuff too, probably, Adam, they abandoned once they got down really quick. I mean, if you think about it, they were down 7-0. Then they should have been down 3-0. Okay, or 10. They should have been down 10-0. Okay, well now they get the ball, and I think they went and got their field goal, make it 10-3. Okay, so it's closer. It was 7-3, then 10-3, and then the Bills get the ball back, and they have like a 65-yard touchdown pass. So now it's 17-3. At that point, offensive coordinators and head coaches, even though it's still the first half, they start to panic a little bit. And that's when you start pressing and probably start throwing it a little bit too much and all that other stuff that happens. And you sort of abandon your game plan because, oh, my God, we're down 14.
If you are just joining the stream and you want to ask a question, add a comment, hop over to YouTube, ask the question. We'll try to get to as many as we can before the end of the stream. Paul, it's time to get into the defense. And I think the big question I have for you is we've spent a lot of time talking about how the absence of TJ Watt changes the way, the Steelers are pressuring opponents. Today, I kind of felt like everyone was just open. And then it didn't matter, the pass rush didn't seem to matter. Every throw Josh Allen wanted was there quickly. And it wouldn't have mattered if TJ Watt was in that game because he was just finding his guys downfield. The Bills were going for it on every play, and they just flat out cooked the Steelers secondary, which, granted, is dealing with some injuries, that piled up. Is that what you saw? I just felt like I don't think that the game would have gone much differently if TJ Watt had been in there.
Well, the thing that TJ Watt does, if here and there, is, gets to the quarterback and maybe stops some of that here and there. But to your point, they were open all day. He doesn't get to the quarterback every single play. The 98-yard touchdown, if I'm not mistaken, was almost like a zero coverage blitz in some ways. So they had a bunch of guys coming, they just didn't get there. I just feel like, he would have made a difference, but not that much of a difference. Obviously, you put a guy like him in the game, it changes some things. Maybe it wouldn't have been quite pitch and catch like it was today for them, but I still think they would have been able to make big plays and big chunks of yards and all the other stuff. I think that he would have made a difference for them.
What do you think's going on in the secondary? To me, it just feels like you've got Minka Fitzpatrick back there, and then you got a bunch of guys, just guys. And Levi
Well,
Wallace was brought into some celebration. He got cooked a lot today, although he made that nice play on the interception of Allen, but that seemed to be about it for him. You don't have a Kelly Witherspoon in there, but I think he would, the way he played last week against the Jets, he'd be in that same category. What's your read on this secondary and whether it's, good enough to support what people, that's what the Steelers spent their money on, is this defense. I don't think the secondary is living up to a top, defense billing.
No, agree. I agree. You just said it. It's basically Minka Fitzpatrick and a bunch of guys. That's what it is. Just like the defensive line is Cam Hayward and a bunch of guys. That's what it is. You don't have enough good players, period. You don't have enough impact players, period. I mean, what's his first name? Leal.
To Marvin Leal.
Marvin. Okay. I thought he made some plays today. He showed up. What he also showed me is he's probably not going to be a superstar. He might be a guy who does his job and gets some play, makes some plays and this and that and everything. But I also, from what I've seen from him, he looks to me like a guy with a ceiling. So, really, the only play I can think of that Miles Jack made today was the personal foul. What's he doing? There's a lot of different places on the defense where you can say these guys aren't getting it done. But in the secondary, I just think it's very simple. They don't have many good players back there. Cam Sutton is an okay slot receiver. Minka Fitzpatrick obviously is a star, but today you could see he clearly wasn't 100%, but he's a star. Terrell Edmonds is what he is. I mean, he's okay. He was hurt today, obviously. They missed him. He's a guy that does his job and not much more. I mean, I could go through the whole list of them, Witherspoon. I mean, Seattle let him go for a reason. The reality is they've got a bunch of guys who are just sort of guys, and that's not good enough.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think in the run defense category, Devin Bush was trending on Twitter during the game. Of all the Steelers who played poorly in that game, I think Devin Bush clearly must have frustrated the most people. I think most clearly it was that one long run by Allen in the first half.
Right.
It was like 18 or 19 yards. He just ran past him. It was like watching Bud Dupree on a pass rush in 2017 or whatever. Is there any salvaging this guy? And is there any salvaging this run defense unit at all right now?
You got to move on from Devin Bush in the offseason. You got to move on from him. It's done. It's over for him. You can't, because he's just not. You can find a guy that does what he does, who's not going to try and command a lot of money. I just don't. I mean, it hasn't happened for him here. Watching him play, I've said this from day one. He's a guy with a lot of athleticism and zero football instincts, which is incredible considering he grew up, in a family, a football family where his dad was a great, great player. The reality is he has no instinct for the game. And so to me, you add that to the fact, on top of all the other stuff, it's just a team that really right now doesn't have enough good players. And that, I mean, when I say good, I mean impact players. They don't have enough of them, and it's clear to see. If you ask me, it's clear to see.
Couple other items from the second half. I don't think there's a lot we can take from what was actually happening. In terms of the down to down, because to your point, especially on offense, you're just taking what the defense is giving you at that point. They're trying to run the clock down, get out of there. But there was obviously the scrum there with Kenny Pickett. Taking that hit on the one slide, James Daniels getting penalized. Did you have any thoughts on that whole situation? I think I thought it should have been a penalty, and I thought it was a good thing that you saw James Daniels at least showing some fight for his quarterback and a willingness to defend him that way.
Well, again, I think when you look at the fact that the guy that hit him was his teammate at Pitt, it probably wasn't a malicious intent type of hit. It was just a big hit. I don't understand why it wasn't a penalty. I thought if a quarterback was giving himself up, you couldn't touch him. But maybe they've changed the rule. I don't know exactly. I didn't hear what the explanation was for that, why that was legal. But you know what? I don't have a problem with James Daniel there standing up for his quarterback. That's the kind of stuff that maybe it helps you rally around. Now, what happened, later in the game with a couple of other situations with fights and things of the such, that to me is a bad look. You know what? It's a bad look because it's one of those frustration things where if you play better and you're not getting your head kicked in, you're not getting frustrated. So I didn't like some of the stuff later in the game, but that particular play, you know what? You're going to hit my quarterback like that, I'm coming after you. That sends a pretty clear message, I think, to the rest of the team and to everybody else that, hey, you know what? We might be getting our heads kicked in, but we are unified, and you're not going to just take shots at our quarterback.
The other thing a lot of people seem to be upset with on social media was the Steelers deciding to kick a couple times when they were really getting their butts kicked, deciding to go for field goals instead. What did you think of those decisions? Me personally, I was of the opinion that if you can't score field goals, you're not going to score touchdowns. And I think there's something to be said for seeing the ball go through the hoop in a game like this, where maybe you get some points, maybe you build a little confidence. You're still going to lose, but maybe you have something going into next week. Of course, Chris Boswell missed 2 of the 3, and that certainly doesn't help the confidence. I didn't have a huge problem with it. They weren't going to win today, and they certainly weren't going to convert 4th and 13s, trying to score a touchdown.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the 4th and 13 actually kicking a field goal there or trying to kick a field goal. The one in the first half, maybe you go for it there. But at the end of the day, you want to take some points out of that drive, get yourself a little bit closer. You still have a half of football. Maybe there's some positive that goes into that. The 4th and 13 one, I actually, when they got down there the first drive of the second half, thought they should have kicked a field goal. They went for it on 4th and 5. At that point, you're down, 31-3. You finally have a little positive momentum. You finally have your quarterback in a rhythm a little bit and driving down the field. You're not going to win the game. I mean, you're just not. So, because you can't stop them. So I wouldn't have had a problem if they'd have kicked a field goal there. Just to say, okay, here's something positive we can take. Now let's try and build on it the next time we get the football. Get some points, because this whole thing about, we're going to go for it because, field goal doesn't do anything. You could have scored a 17-point touchdown there and you still weren't winning the game. So at the end of the day, have those little victories, small victories in games. You know what? It's our first drive after half. We went right down the field. Let's take the 3 points. Now let's try and build on that positivity the next time we get the ball back and see if we can get some momentum that we can use to really carry into next week. I wouldn't have had a problem with them kicking it there. And at 4th and 13, you got to kick it.
Yeah, I agree. Any final thoughts, Paul? I think we're going to close to wrapping up here. Any final thoughts on this game?
No, it's going to be an interesting week of soul searching, though, over in the South Side. There's a lot of issues they need to get cleaned up, and it goes way beyond who plays quarterback, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, hey, we set another new record this week, Paul, in terms of our audience. So thank you guys for coming out, and hopefully you've been enjoying these videos. We're going to wrap them up. If you haven't already, please like this video. Help us out with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a video. Going to be a lot more this week with Christopher Carter on the North Shore Drive. He'll be breaking it down with Ray Filipaldo tomorrow. So subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that. And please check out that subscription deal I mentioned earlier. $6 for 6 months of access to Post-Gazette.com. Going to be, like you said, Paul, a lot of soul searching this week. So check that all out. We will talk to you guys again next week after the Steelers face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Acrisure Stadium. Thanks, Paul.
Right. Thanks. We'll see.